Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As I said in the previous video, I wanted to tear down the motor a little bit. Just try to see what's going on with this LS2, see if it's in any good condition. I really don't know if I'm gonna be able to sell this thing, scrap it, or what. One idea is take the rod, piston, and crank out, sell that as a set, scrap the block. That's one option. The other option is kind of just throw it as is on Facebook for, I don't know, $500 to $1,000, something like that, and just go from there. So we're gonna start this out by removing the oil pan. Now I would flip the motor over and just take the oil pan off, but I kind of want to keep, if there's any crap in the oil pan, I want to keep that in there. So we're just gonna leave it elevated. We'll just take the bolts out from the bottom. All right guys, we got the oil pan off. You can see the improved racing baffle and trap door and all that. I don't think we hit anything on that. And what I mean by that is, you know, when we mocked this up 2 years ago, you know, we did check it. So that all still looks pretty clean. I mean, there's a little bit of dirt on it, but, you know, I'm not seeing anything major. Down here in the oil pan, I mean, it's dirty, but, you know, it doesn't look like there's any bearing material or anything. There's no gold colors or anything kind of crazy like that. There's a little bit of coolant. That probably came in when we removed the heads. But yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing, there's no major chunks. So a lot of this could be that ARP assembly lube. And what I'm talking about is when you use any of the ARP hardware, especially the head studs, they want you to put that assembly lube underneath the head of the bolt, or the nut in this case, and on top of the washer. So the driver's side head has been off no less than 3 or 4 times, something like that. And yeah, so there has been a lot of ARP assembly lube gone through the top end, and I'm assuming that's kind of what is settled here. Now all this stuff here, that is just the texture of the oil pan, you know, because it is a rough cast aluminum. So like, I'm not seeing, there's no chunks or anything. I'm seeing a little bit of RTV, but that's just from, you know, stuff that's fallen in. That's not anything to worry about. And the other thing to consider, none of this is synthetic oil. This is all racing oil from VR1. It's VR1 10W40, I think. That's the only thing we've ran in this besides the break-in oil from a couple years ago. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think it looks fine. Well, I thought we had drained all the coolant. Obviously we hadn't, there was still some left, but that's not bad. So glad we have the strip tray because it caught nearly all of it. And so yeah, here's the bottom end. Everything looks pretty clean. There's some black residue, but I don't think that's anything to really be too worried about. The oil pickup tube looks clean. Yeah, it looks pretty clean. So at first glance, everything looks to be like it's fine. I just can't be 100% sure about that ARP assembly lube and what this VR1 motor oil does. Like I said, I think that's what that staining is from. I'm just not 100% sure. I will say this, that LS2 oil pan looks a lot cleaner than the 5.3 liter pan that we took off of this motor. That thing was amber stained, dark, or real nasty. But like I said, I just don't know how that ARP assembly lube breaks down over time. I don't know if it just kind of settles in the bottom of the pan and stays there and stains it black. I'm just not 100% sure. I just need to ask because I just don't know. But yeah, so I mean, everything so far looks clean. There's no chunks of aluminum or metal. Like, everything looks like it's held together. You know, we don't have a lot of miles on this motor. I actually was adding it up. I think we've got a few thousand miles on this motor. I think in the previous video I said, like, oh, we have like 1,500 miles. No, it's been a few thousand because I've changed the oil 2 or 3 times, and I think I did it at 500 miles, 1,000 miles. And I actually put another 500 miles on it between last fall, my last winter build, and getting ready for the half-mile event because we had a lot of stuff to test out. But windage tray, I know that I can't use that, but the crank scraper I might be able to use. I'm just not sure. The reason I say that is because I actually called Molnar and their cranks are based off a 6 counterweight versus an 8 counterweight. Improved Racing website specifically says it will not work with 8 counterweight cranks, so I know that it would fit that. And actually, guys, I don't remember this being there. If you guys can see that, that almost looks like that's been hit from underneath. I don't remember, like, that just caught my eye, the way that bend is. So maybe we had a rod bolt hit that. That would be real interesting. Let's go ahead and see if we can stick a flashlight down here. Oh, I don't see anything. It's not, this bolt looks fine. I'd have to check the other end of this rod right here. Interesting. All right, guys, this bolt came nowhere near hitting that. So if you guys can look right in the middle of the screen, basically you see that scratch. I'll back this up a little bit. Yeah, that bolt, rod bolt, is nowhere near that. Okay, so good. I was worried. I'm like, crap, did we have something go through there? No. So it's not that rod bolt. I just remembered why I struggled when we put this together a couple years ago. Well, I got all the bolts off for the bottom windage tray. Well, guess what? That is stuck around the oil pickup tube. And then the oil pickup tube, I have got the one bolt removed, but we have the Improved Racing brace underneath there. You can see my finger pointed to it. I think that's a 10 millimeter. That's in the way, and it's like, why can't they make this stuff simple? And the other thing is, I totally forgot, this windage tray actually is left over from the original motor from the car. So when that piston exploded and the rod spun, that's what that's from. That's from the piston exploding or the rod coming loose, one of the two. And that's what that's from. That's not from this setup. So I was like, I just remembered that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the only thing that didn't survive. The crank scraper, that was new for this application. The baffle right here, the oil pan baffle, that is from the original motor. So as you can see, we are taking the passenger side head off. We're starting with the small bolts up top. Those are a stud. The nut on top is a 12.10 millimeter. Now we're moving on to the main head studs, and those are a 12.16 millimeter. And as you guys can see, everything's coming apart pretty easy. As you just saw, we did get the other head off, so the passenger side head is off of the old 6.0. I need to take that as long with the 5.3. We got to drop that off over to the machine shop and get started on the 427 build. But, you know, I did just want to take this apart and kind of show you what's going on with it. Everything came apart pretty easily. Couple interesting things. Some of the studs came out with the nuts on it. So I don't know if I damaged the top of the nut. Oh, yeah, I can see the top of that nut damaged. So I'm not exactly sure how that got damaged. Maybe when I was pulling the motor. But yeah, two of those came out with the nut still attached. And this one right here, this is the one that I pulled out of the thread stud. You guys can still see there is some red Loctite on there. So taking a look at the actual hole, it looks centered, but I don't know, guys. Who knows? I don't know why this thing didn't work, but I mean, when the stud was in there, it was pretty much centered in the hole. So I don't know what's going on, but I guess it could be either off center or it could be, you know, at a slight angle, and that's just what prevented it from, you know, putting the head on. But I don't know, something isn't working, obviously. And taking a look at the top of the thread cert, I don't know if that's just a chunk of the red Loctite, like a flake of it, or the thread cert's starting to strip. you know, when I had to take this out, this took a lot more effort than it did the passenger side. This entire side I took apart with a 3/8 wrench. You know, it came right out, no issue, didn't need a big pipe or cheater bar or anything. Just came out. This side, I used that same wrench and I had to put a cheater bar on it, that pipe back there, to get this thing to loosen up. But like I said, I don't know if that's the thread cert, I don't know if that's the red Loctite or what's going on. But yeah, so this block, I mean, minus some engine mounts and some LS9 parts I got to take off, the air conditioning bracket and the front harmonic balancer, I mean, this block is pretty much done. What's interesting, the guy that sold me the block a couple years ago actually reached out to me and asked me what I was going to do with the block, and I have not replied to him just yet. Maybe I sell it back to him as a core. I don't know. I take it apart, try to sell the rods. You know, it's always an option. I don't know. I'll have to see how that conversation goes, that we can go from there. So. Alright guys, we were able to get all of the bolts out of here. 2 of them tried to strip out. Actually, they did strip. I kind of just did the old hit with a bigger hammer, or a hex bit in this case, and I was able to get them all out. Now we need to get the outer hub off. We also need to get the crank pulley off. Alright guys, as you just saw, we got the oil pickup tube removed. We got the brace from Improved Racing, that taken off. No major issues there. We got a little bit of silicone. Yeah, it looks like it's just some old RTV in the pickup tube, but that's not a bigger deal. O-ring looks like it's good. Now we got to get the main caps off. So there's, I don't know, 6 or 7 of these. I think they're, looks to be either a 12 or 13 millimeter. We'll get those bolts off. And also, if you guys didn't see it, we also got the hub off, but the crank bolt is not cooperating, and I almost broke my socket. So I think what we're gonna have to do is actually put the flywheel back on. I've got a flywheel lockout tool, and we should be able to try to go ahead and get this again. Alright, the crank scraper from Improved Racing has now fully been removed. We're going to go ahead and take one of the rod caps off. I just want to make sure the bearings are good to go, because if we do want to sell this rotating assembly. Alright guys, here is the bearing, and it looks fine. There's a slight scratch kind of right there in the middle. I don't know if I did that. Kind of doubt that I did, but I mean, you know, this engine has probably 1,500, 2,000 miles on it. I mean, yeah, so this bearing looks pretty much brand new. Like I said, there's a couple of scratches in it, but there's no deep grooves in it. There's no Nothing crazy like that. And here's the crank, guys. That looks fine. I don't even think you'd have to polish it. I think you could throw this in a motor and be set. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it for this video. We really can't move forward until we get the flywheel on. And honestly, guys, the only thing we have really left to take out is the cam and take off the front and rear covers. And the rest of that stuff just really isn't that important when it comes down to tearing this thing down. I wanted to check the bearings, make sure they look good. They look brand new, look like they've barely been ran, because it's true, we've only got, I actually don't know how many miles we have on this setup. It's probably less than 3,000. I know we did about 500 miles on it this year, and last year was probably another couple hundred. And then the previous years when we installed the motor, we didn't put a lot on it then either. So probably less than 3,000 miles on the bottom end. And it sucks because the bottom end is perfectly fine. It's a fully forged LS. It just has one massively screwed up hole that you basically can't fix. Tearing down this bottom end did actually answer a big question that we had. And that was, what is all this gray crap that's in the bottom of the oil pan? And I pretty much had read up that it's probably most likely the ARP assembly lube. Us taking that rod cap off, checking the bearing of the crank as well as the piston, everything looked perfectly fine as far as I could tell. There wasn't any major scoring, any major scratches or anything like that. Didn't look like we were eating any bearings or anything like that. And every oil change that we drained out of this thing, I never had any glitter or gold or copper. We never had any major metal flakes in it. It was always just kind of had a gray tinge to it. Well, now I think that kind of confirms it. And with those bearings looking fine, I think we're good to go. So as for the rest of this motor, the air conditioning bracket, I need to pull that off. I need to pull the motor mounts off. Front and rear cover, I really can't use either. I already have a brand new rear cover, so I don't really need that. The front cover is obviously different between the wet sump and the dry sump. The wet sump is shorter, the dry sump sticks out like another 2 inches. And actually, we don't really need anything from that timing gear set because the timing gear is the same, but the timing gear on the crank is different. The timing chain is going to be a C5R. Already got a new K-Tech one that's at the machine shop. Yeah, so we really don't need any of this. So either we'll recycle the front cover or we will sell it. So yeah. Heck, I can't even use the ARP crank bolt because again, that is different between the dry sump and the wet sump. So yeah, this thing is pretty much either destined for the scrapyard or I might sell it to the guy that sold it to me. With whatever decision we end up making, we'll keep you guys updated. We'll put that in a future video. And like I said, everything's been at the machine shop for a few weeks now. And yeah, so that engine project's gonna be quite a project, and I think it's gonna be a couple more months before we get it back. So yeah, that's gonna be it. If you guys want to see the engine updates, hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. And if you guys want to help support the channel, check out all the links down below. I'll try to have links for everything, the tools, maybe some parts, everything that we used today. And also make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. We've got our merch there, we've got our used parts, and hint, hint, a lot of the parts that we're probably gonna be pulling out of the motor will eventually end up on eBay. And yeah, so if you want to get some Forged LS2 parts, we'll have it on there. And we'll also have it on Facebook Marketplace because that's all local stuff. And we'll go from there. So that's gonna be it. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.